Hello, my friends. Andy over at FalcoK9Academy. What do you need, son? Earbuds right here. Right when I hit the play, the go live button these days, I go, stop. Hey, got a few things I want to talk to you about that have just recently been asked through messaging. I guess get a ton of messages on subject matter that comes up on the news from one person heard from another person about CBD in regard to dogs and a whole bunch of stuff. So I want to address all of them because they are really important as they are current in our current situation, and then as we are moving forward. I was really enjoying my music there. We have a mastermind group of people, of entrepreneurs, and my business partner. I run this mastermind group, and was talking about the intros to our StreamYard broadcast, and somebody said, "Hey, Andy has the best music on his thing," and I gotta agree. Because no matter what show I'm doing, the music makes me get all fired up for the show. I can be kind of like so in my mood and then hit that button, and then the music kind of gets me ready. So enough about that. All right. So one of the things that just came on, it's so funny because it happens all the time that when I would just as I was getting live, beginning to get ready to go live and putting the post together, Fox News had a story on adoption fraud, which was, I read another story that came up on my Twitter feed. And yes, you know what? The dog world is fraught with fraud. Wow, I just made that up. Fraught with fraud. It's just crazy. Hey, Daniel, nice to see you at GS Rock, German Shepherd Rescue of Orange County. Nice to see you. And that is anything that happens over the internet where people ask you to send them money and they're not necessarily a legitimate organization. And then it comes down to the last minute. And this is one of the scams is that they'll phone you, like a week or two after you've given this deposit, maybe a couple of days. And they'll say, hey, we had this thing happen. We're shutting down. We have to get rid of these dogs. You need to, send the rest of the money and then come and pick up your dog. Well, then you send them the rest of the money and then there's no dog and there's no location to go to, or they send you to some parking lot in Walmart, and a whole number of things can happen. That is rampant. So the solution obviously is that if you have an address, then you can send some people down there. If you say, because I know a lot of people buy dogs out of state and out of country. I bought a lot, not hundreds, but nearly 100 dogs out of the country in Europe. And you have to know what you're doing, or else the same thing happens there too. Just because it's in Europe doesn't mean that it's legitimate. And so you have to be very careful. So over the years, when I've gone out to buy dogs or have people buy me dogs, now I bought at least 1,000 dogs all over the place, Canada, United States, and Europe. And South America. And you just got to be very careful that you know who you're dealing with, that you have somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody, no further than that, maybe 2 or 3, things down that, and they have to be people that you know and trust that are giving you information. Because sometimes when I'm buying a dog in Europe, I sometimes have to send, $10,000, $20,000 ahead of me going there. That way the dogs will be available when I, book my flight, my hotels, and then land in Budapest, Hungary, and then get in a rental car or get picked up and then driven to Slovak Republic or Poland or wherever I'm going, Hungary. And so when I'm going, you're laying out a lot of cash to get there, and then nothing. Right. And then there's nothing because you've got scammed. So I feel sorry. The stories that I've heard, the people that simply are like going to Riverside. I'm here in Orange County, California, and you can be scammed in Riverside. You drive all the way down there and then there's nothing. You've given them $2,000 or $3,000 and then you get down there and it's a scam. So, reputable people. I know some people, but not everybody, because I get asked all the time, hey, do you know Sam Smith in Walla Walla, Washington? And I go, no, don't know him in Walla Walla, Washington. And so I would not be a good connection, right? You're going to have to find somebody that has a good connection that knows this person's legit and they bought dogs there before. It actually exists. And when they say they have 5 dogs, they have 5 dogs, right? You don't want to go to somebody and they have 15 customers for 2 dogs, because what they're doing is they're waiting for somebody to pay the most, and that's the person who gets the dog. And then you've already sent your deposit, and then you're waiting all this time. Your kids are excited, you're excited, and then the day comes where you're going to drive up there, and they say, oh, you know what, the dog already got sold. What? I put a deposit. What do you mean my dog got sold? And so there's a whole lot of different things that happen, and really have to be very, very careful I got a guy. Nice. Where's your dog? Where's your deposit? See, so I'm one of those people. David could give me a deposit. He knows in the end he'll get a dog or he'll get his deposit back. That's really what's important. And so the other thing is where Daniel is from, or where he's representing, is the German Shepherd Rescue of Orange County. It's an organization that's been around for a very, very long time. And then you go there and they've got a lot of dogs. My office used to be in the GS Rock building there, and we still have a presence there. But there's a lot of dogs, right? You're not going to get there, and then there's not going to be dogs available. You got to know things happen, like dogs die, dogs get sick, dogs get accidentally adopted, and the paperwork for whatever reason, gets mixed and that kind of stuff. When you're dealing with a lot of dogs, understand that these are things that can happen. And in some cases, you have to be understanding that mix-ups do occur. But, for the most part, they don't. I'm not saying that's happening at GS Rock, by the way. I'm just saying that just understand that some things happen. Kennel cough is almost unavoidable in a kennel situation. So if you're buying a dog in Utah or even Ireland, which has happened to me, or Slovak Republic, you're buying this dog. And when you paid for the dog, when you made arrangements for the dog and you got all the pictures and the videos of the dog doing stuff showing that he actually is alive and he has all the traits that you want, that kind of stuff, you can be on the way to get out there and they'll say, oh, hold up, the dog has parasites, the dog has kennel cough, the dog has this kind of stuff. You're going to have to understand that this is the real world of dogs. Kennel cough, parasites, ringworm, heartworm, these things happen and it's very, very difficult. I bought a couple dogs out of Slovak Republic that come back with parasites and they nearly died after I paid tons of money, flew down there, selected them, did a lot of like a week long's work of evaluation and then get them here and the dog nearly dies. So understand that's another side. I'm not trying to scare people. I'm just the further you go, the greater the risk, right? If you live in Orange County and you go to GS Rock, they're right here in Yorba Linda, there's reduced risk because you could go there and check on the dog every day until they process your paperwork. You get everything you need to have in place. You get your location visited and they evaluate your location to make sure it's a place where that's safe for the dog and safe for the family and all that kind of stuff. You have a kennel, whatever it is that they require you have. There's a little bit of a waiting period as you're going through all that stuff. And then when time comes and you get the dog. But what I'm talking about is that in that between when you commit to a dog and when you actually can pick them up, anything can happen. Dog can get cancer. A dog can have a heart attack. The dog can get, in some locations can get Lyme disease and a whole bunch of other stuff, right? So understand that when I'm talking about a scam, I'm not talking about that. That's not really a scam. That is just life. All right. They're going to get sick. Things happen. And it's risky. The dog business is a risky business. You got to understand. I have dogs talking about Everett, who's looking for a narcotics dog, and we keep saying we're going to talk about it, and we've had moments to talk about it, and we've never talked about it. So, he's my neighbor. He's like right there, and we never talk about it. We got to sit down and talk about it. I have to explain the commitment to David, and this is kind of what I'm talking about here now. So if you want a working dog and you want to do a job, there now is. I have to tell you that it's a commitment. It's work. You have to train with the dog all the time. You have to make sure the dog is obedient. You have to make sure the dog has all the equipment. You have to make sure that you have training aids that you can train with on a regular basis and have the ability and willingness to go out on your own and find locations to train at. Hide those aids or have one of your family members hide the aids where you don't know where they're at. And then you do a search and you find them, right? There's a lot of working parts. It's just not a dog gets trained and now the dog works and you never have to worry about it again. It's not like, a flashlight that you keep the batteries and the flashlight separated until you need them. You put them together and now it works, right? No matter how long you wait, keep the batteries in the refrigerator. I don't know if you still need to do that or not. That's just what I've always done, right? And then when you need them, when the lights go out and the power fails, you can just go and get a flashlight. A dog's really not that thing necessarily. Now, dogs can maintain that imprintation of training on their brain. And even though that it's not utilized, it will often work and in some cases actually work better, surprisingly enough. But what deteriorates is the teamwork, the ability to work together. That's what deteriorates. So it's not necessarily the dog forgets what the odor of narcotics or bed bugs or explosives is over time. That usually remains the same. It's imprinted. That's why we call it imprinted. It's imprinted in the dog's brain. The brain recognizes it, and the dog has an automatic reaction to that odor. And in most cases, it's sit, right? That usually stays pretty strong. What is harmed over not training and not doing good training over a period of time is the ability for the human and the dog to work together. That's what begins to deteriorate over time. You forget, do I lead off with my left foot, my right foot, left hand, right hand? When I'm coming around clockwise, how do I hold the leash? When I come around counterclockwise, how do I hold the leash? When do I direct? When do I allow the dog to work on his own? When do I do blah, 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 all this kind of stuff? That is what deteriorates over time. All right. So I'm not sure how I got onto that subject matter because it was not one of the subjects in the thing, but it's just an important point to keep in mind when people are deciding to get a dog. There we go. That's what it was. There's things that you have to have in mind when you're getting a dog, and so that includes breed. All right, and so and I'm going to get to my second point, which is adopting military dogs that are being shipped back, because what I've heard lately is that since we're reducing a presence in some of these countries, there's less need for the amount of dogs that are out there in, the Middle East and even other countries like Japan and Korea, South Korea. Where else are we? We're everywhere, right? We're all over the place. We have military bases and presence all over the place where we use dogs. But because in some cases we're reducing the presence of these countries, we now have dogs that are coming here, and the handlers either the military is funny, right? When the handler gets a dog in the military, often it's changed a lot over the years. It used to be the dog is like a tank or a Jeep, that once the handler was done, the dog would go into a warehouse and be, kept in a warehouse or kept in a kennel. The dog didn't go with the handler. That has begun to change. You can see on some stories that now the dogs are sometimes going home with their last handler, or if that handler doesn't have a place for the dog or have a need for the dog, then they may go with the handler that was previous to that handler. Those are some possibilities. That used to not be the case, but they're beginning to change things because they understand the dog is different than a Jeep, than a tank, than a gun, right? That you can't just put it in a warehouse and say, good riddance, and then blow the dust off and use it later. A dog is a living thing that can have an attachment to the human being, certain human beings. Some humans, dogs have no attachment, just so you know. And sometimes they hate their handlers, just so you know. and so these dogs get shipped home. So the question was that somebody sent me, they tagged me in a question, is that first they asked what EDD is. EDD is explosive detection dog. And so you're going to see EDD dogs available for adoption, possibly. I'm not sure where this all kind of started from. I didn't go to the original post, but the question was to me, what's EDD? Explosive detection dog. And then the question was, is an explosive detection dog safe? Probably, but you have to also understand that sometimes these dogs are cross-trained for protection work. So there's other moving parts here. So let's first just look at if the dog is just an explosive detection dog where he's been tested through his desire to play with a toy, right? To work, to search and find something because he thinks in the end he's going to get his toy. That's all it is. It has nothing to do with aggression. Has nothing to do with enhancing that aggression and making it stronger. It's just simply a dog that wants to play with a toy. If it's a Labrador Retriever, the dog in most cases is probably going to be a pretty safe pet. And it just so happens he could search your house for explosives or your car, right? He has that ability as long as he was trained well. Again, I've been around for a very long time. I've seen plenty of military dogs that are poorly trained and many military dogs that are fantastic. All right. So just understand that. To give a blanket statement that every military dog is great, I would be making a huge mistake. Or whatever. Everybody knows. All right. So it's no secret. So you have these dogs that are coming back, the explosive detection dog. If this dog has only been tested and has shown the sign for toys, that part of it is not going to be a problem. Understand that they also use German Shepherds and Belgian Malinois. Remember, I was talking about Labrador Retrievers before. Now we're talking about Belgian Malinois and German Shepherds. These dogs quite often are, bred in Europe and now South America is a fairly popular place to get working dogs like a Shepherd or Belgian Malinois, and other countries, Hungary, China, Poland, all these places they breed dogs. In many cases, the dogs originally are born with the concept that they may do bite work and they may do detection work, and so as they are being raised as puppies, they are being tested for the different traits that they need to do bite work and search for things for a toy. The part of the brain that works for the toy is simply that it wants to find the thing that it desires the most, a tennis ball, a Kong, a stick, a piece of copper, a piece of PVC, whatever it is they're using, that dog sees that thing and goes, oh my God, I got to have that so bad. I will search through glass and, up in a tree. I will search through a darkened warehouse in a building and underneath a car and stick my nose by. I want that thing so bad, and has such a strong desire that's not anything really, for the most part, you have to worry about. Again, there's some other caveats that I don't have time to go into, but for the most part, it's just the strong desire for that thing. They can get you into problems, right? Here, as opposed to a Labrador Retriever, which there's some minor thing, but with German Shepherds and Belgian Malinois, there's also now you add a desire so strong that this possessiveness for that thing and this desire for this thing, if a child picks up the tennis ball, you can now have a dog that is in a Malinois and German Shepherd with a really strong bite and just a different breed of dog, where that can turn into aggression, where the possessiveness for that toy, because the desire for it is so strong, that they may say, hey, kid, right, let go of that toy. The kid doesn't let go of the toy and does this, and the dog goes, really? And then goes after the toy trying to get it, but there's a little bit of aggression. Do you see what I'm saying? So you can't, again, I hate blanket statements altogether, like never and always. And then since it's a toy thing, then it's okay. It's not going to hurt him. No, I have been bit over a toy. I can't tell you how many times. I think detection dog handlers get bit more by their dogs than protection dog handlers. And I'm talking about the handlers themselves. Handlers who have detection dogs, and if there's anybody on here that's ever worked, a lot of detection dogs, go ahead and speak out and tell me if I'm lying. That detection dog handlers get bit all the time by their dogs, accidentally and sometimes on purpose. I would say most of the time it's on accident. The dog has such a strong desire for it. They go to get that toy, and they're, especially this webbing of your hand right here, because you're holding onto the toy. Like if this is a toy, that's a burlap toy, the dog will come up and bite. And quite often that little bit of skin that's right there, a tooth ends up going through that quite often. So I don't know how many times a dog has bit through that webbing on my hand, but it's probably more than 5 or 6 times. And so it's quite often, or just my hand. I've had my hand just completely. And so it happens a lot. So in detection dogs, just so you understand. And when we're talking about aggression, it's aggressively going after the toy, but not necessarily going after you. But then you have the other dogs that can aggressively go after you because you have something that they desperately want, and you're teasing them and haven't given it to them. And now you have a bite out of aggression. Those possibilities are still there. Now, we have, again, now I'll go back to the other side where the dogs are also quite often tested for protection. And early on as puppies, they begin to take this burlap rag and teach the dog to bite the burlap rag. And then they end up, making it look like a snake or squirrel. And then they wrap that burlap around an arm. The dog comes and bites the burlap on the arm and pulls it off. And then the dog is beginning to learn to engage a human being to bite them to get that rag. And now the human becomes part of the game as opposed to the toy, which is a separate thing. Do you see what I'm saying? And so sometimes the dogs pass and they continue to now be cross-trained detection for toys and protection for biting people, right? Again, there's a lot of other moving parts that it would take me way too long to explain all the different things, but just understand that sometimes they could be headed in that direction where they're going to be trained for protection. So when you're seeing these dogs that are available and they say they're an EDD dog, a follow-up question will be, was this dog ever trained for protection? He may not have ever been used in protection, but a Belgian Malinois German Shepherd, if you go to any of the local locations or Mississippi or some other places that you go and buy dogs, if I go to Europe, almost every dog that I look at for if I'm going to buy a dog for detection and it's a Malinois or German Shepherd, they've also been trained for protection. It's just it's a given. Either the protection is really weak, and so that's why they're not selling them as cross-trained dogs. The protection is just kind of so-so. The bite is kind of soft or, very shallow. They're on the end of the sleeve with the front of their teeth or something like that. And they go, the dog's, he's not going to be a bite dog. But yeah, he's been trained to do bite work. I'm going to continue here just for 1 second. I know this can get complicated, but I want you to understand that the next question will be, was the dog trained and selected for protection? All right. Did the dog work in protection? In other words, did they take the dog that originally as a puppy was trained to do the thing? Did he now have a life as a protection dog? In military dogs, they get recycled often. In the past, when I was a handler, one dog at Camp Pendleton, where I would help with their training from time to time and help them with some consulting, a dog would have 5 or 6 handlers and maybe more from the time that he started at Camp Pendleton to when he was retired, and even more. So several handlers, because sometimes the dog works with, Fred really well, and then Fred gets out of the military, and then John comes in, and John and the dog hate each other, and yet they don't. That's the dog you got. You got to make it work, and the dog really doesn't work, and the dog hates the guy, and then he gets the next guy. He likes that guy. He's okay. He's not as good as the first guy, but I hated the second guy, but I kind of like the third guy, and then right, you see how this goes on. What can happen is then you have a dog that bites out of aggression, out of fear, because if he doesn't bite out of aggression, the dog fears getting repercussions from the handler. And so now you see it starts messing with his mind just a little bit. So knowing, back to my original point, knowing whether the dog was just simply evaluated for bite work early on as a puppy and had some training in it, and then that ended, but now he became just a detection dog, the likelihood of him being still possibly a pet in a home that has children is a possibility. I cannot guarantee anything because I don't know the dog that you're looking at. I'm just telling you that the likelihood of the dog working out is higher. And then you have a dog that's trained for protection and detection who actually gets used in Afghanistan, United States, Canada, and on a daily basis or weekly basis, the dog is constantly biting equipment and biting people in training scenarios. You have a little bit of a concern. You may have a little bit of a concern that in a situation, the dog may see something real and not realize whether it's real life or training, and then they'll bite, but then realize, hey, I just bit, Jimmy, the 12-year-old kid, because the dog was reacting based as he's been trained, right? It's not really his fault. He's just doing something that he's been trained over a period of time. And so now you start seeing the risk factors as you go further when a dog is trained in protection, detection, and has been used in the field, is that, you may want to make sure this dog goes to somebody that knows what they're doing. You see, so these are questions that need to be asked along the way when you have a military dog or a police dog, because they come up for adoption too, and say, this dog actually worked for the city of Anaheim, the city of Los Angeles, LA County Sheriff. This dog used to work for them. All right, what's the dog's history? LA County has plenty of Belgian Malinois that the only thing they've ever done in their entire life is detection. But they also have other Malinois who've done protection, patrol, and detection. And a lot of people, my police dog bit 78 people in real life on the skin, dragged them from underneath a car or a bush, or tackled them in the middle of a chase. And yet he was around, my children, my child, because he was only around during my oldest child. And they would play together, they would go for walks together, and there was never an issue. So I can tell you that it can work, but obviously I was not only a cop with a canine, but I was also owned FalcoK9Academy and trained lots of very aggressive dogs. And I never would have let that dog be with my daughter if I didn't know that dog well enough that the dog could be safe. So can the dog be safe? It is possible. But with all the dogs available, the hundreds of dogs at German Shepherd Rescue, hundreds, I think, right? I could be maybe speaking about too many, but at least a couple hundred dogs that are available through German Shepherd Rescue. Your chances of it's better to take a chance with a dog that you know some of the history, and then find the dog that fits best into your family, as opposed to taking a dog. And again, I want these dogs to get adopted. Don't get me wrong on this area either. Don't say, well, Andy doesn't want military dogs to get. I do. I'm just telling you that if you have kids, you want to be careful. Is that you just make sure and ask those questions. If it's just a detection dog, but yet everything looks good, it's a Labrador Retriever. You're probably going to be okay. If it's a German Shepherd Belgian Malinois, understand what the history of that dog is and what their capabilities are. And do you understand that breed? Do you understand what a Belgian Malinois is? Like just having a Belgian Malinois, period, whether it's been trained for detection or bite work, you better know what you're doing. Now, are there some perfectly fine, mellow Belgian Malinois? Absolutely. There are some that are just like, they would never hurt anybody. But just understand what the dog's breed is and what it's meant to do. Same thing with German Shepherds, Rottweilers, and all the other breeds, right? Understand the breed before you select it. Make sure you understand the breed before you bring it home to your family, and know what you're getting into. I wouldn't get a Belgian Malinois if you're a couch potato, right? I've talked about that before. You might want to get a Basset Hound. All right. Or, some other type of dog, a Labradoodle that doesn't have a lot of energy. Get one of them. Or a big fat Labrador Retriever. Get one of them. Right. And so you don't need to worry about it. If you have a high energy Labrador Retriever, high energy German Shepherd, high energy Belgian Malinois, and you don't go out and do walks and ride bikes and do hiking, the dog will probably drive you crazy and make you mad. And you'll take your anger out on the dog. All right. So I hope I answered that question, probably over answered that question. Just understand that there's some follow-up questions to know, and then make your decision based on that. Also, see if there's a return policy that after 2 to 4 weeks, I like to always say, make sure that you have a 2 to 4 week return period, because in most cases, you will not see the personality of the dog for the first 2 weeks. You may, but quite often you won't see aggression. You may not see digging, barking, humping your leg in an annoying amount of time, licking your skin. It's just like manic, that kind of, you don't see the manic behavior sometimes for about 2 weeks. So my suggestion, not all places allow you to do this, but I would say, hey, do I have 2 to 4 weeks to bring this dog back? Because I was watching Andy's thing. Oh, that guy's an idiot, which they'll probably tell you. He doesn't know what he's talking about. But I'm telling you, in my history, 2 to 4 weeks is where you will begin to see the real personality of your dog. That your dog now hates the children, that your dog now hates your husband, which would be fine with some women, I'm sure. But the dog will now suddenly begin to show you where he lies in the family, and where he believes he lies based on what his experience has been up to that point. All right. So 2 to 4 weeks is a really good thing to have in your back pocket, because the dog may not work out. Do not fall in love with the dog in the first 2 weeks. Do not fall in love with your dog in the first 2 weeks. I'm telling you that is one of the worst things that can happen when it's like a relationship, right? Right. You in the beginning, and I've said this 100 times too, and I'm sorry, I'm going to repeat it, but some of you that I can see that are on right now have not watched me before. Many relationships are fantastic in the first couple weeks, right? Fireworks, fun. So many things are so outstanding, right? The things they do are so cute. And then a few weeks down the road, irritating as hell, right? You don't like it. Like, stop licking me. Not the human, but the dog. Stop. Stop licking me. Stop chewing annoyingly on your feet all the time, or whatever it is, because they have allergies. And this dog has allergies. Frick. All I have on my property is grass, and the dog has grass allergies, right? It's too bad I don't live in an apartment where I'm hardly on the grass. And you have a dog that has allergies. That's like finding out that my daughter has dog and cat allergies, right? And you go, I can't get rid of my kid, but I can't get certain dogs and have them in the house, because she will be plugged up and sneezing and blown up, and she gets asthma if she's around dogs too long. Right? And so you got to understand that there's these things will not show themselves until later on. All right. So I hope that I cleared up some of those things and didn't make it more complicated for you. I think in answering these things, we just simply want to go out, and this does make things more complicated, right? You just want to go get a dog and you want to bring it home to your family and have fun, right? Go for a run. The problem is, I can tell you, most of our customers, which is fine, because of this thing, we have a lot of customers. We've had a lot of customers over the years. I've had classes so full that I couldn't take anymore, because many people get dogs, they fall in love with them, and now they can't get rid of them because they love them, but they also hate them. That they do. They have a love-hate relationship with the dog. And I'd say many of our clients are in that position that they have a love-hate relationship with that. They love their dog when it's 7:00 at night and it's very quiet, and the dog is laying on their lap, and the dog's looking at them with the eyes and going, this is the greatest thing. I love this dog. But you can't take the dog for a walk because he's going to pull your arm out of the socket. He's pulled you down on the ground a couple times, or he's gotten a hold of another dog and you can't get him to let go. Or during the day when the mailman comes, a UPS guy, he destroys the front door, right? But at night he's lovely. I love this dog, but I hate him during the day. I hate him when the UPS guy comes. I hate him when I can't take him for a walk. I can't take him out of the backyard. I want to kill this dog. But with my kids, he's perfect. Or the other way around, right? With me, he's fantastic. He and I have a bond. We can do almost anything together, but he hates my kids. He's going to hurt my kids. He's going to hurt the neighbors. He's going to hurt the husband, because the husband comes home late at night and the dog growls at him. And now the wife has to take the dog off the bed and put him into another room because the husband can't get in the bed because the dog wants to kill the husband, right? I've seen, these are not made up stories. These are real stories. I've had dogs that hate the stepdaughter. And then I have to end up asking the stepmom, well, how do you feel about the stepdaughter? Well, we kind of hate each other. Okay, there's our problem. The problem isn't the dog. It's the relationship that you have with the daughter that's being fed to the dog. And now the dog is responding to your emotions and your lack of love for this other human being. And if we can't fix that, then it's going to be a continuous problem. And now we got to figure out how we're going to deal with that. That's what we have to deal with. We have to figure out a plan so you can live in the same home with your dog and your stepdaughter because as long as you hate your stepdaughter, the dog is going to hate your stepdaughter. That is true, and that is an issue that we've found before, and it's not an unusual position, right? And I'm not speaking about something that's totally crazy. So I may have gone too far just now, but that's what I do. That's why you guys like me. All right. Any questions? Let me see. I'm just going to look on here really quick. Jola. I'm not sure what Jola is. That somebody's name, or is that Argentinian? Because you've been hanging around Aldo for too much, and that's like a laugh out loud in Argentinian. I don't know. And Gina, by the way, is one of the best trainers on the planet. There at FalcoK9 Orange County, and make sure and connect with her. She's the one who handles all of our pet dog training for our organization, and they have a new facility, new things going on over there on Valley View. I'm so happy for all the things that are going on down there. All right. Traveling stresses them out also on flights. Absolutely. It does. Some dogs could care less. I've taken dogs in helicopters, right? I have to strap a dog to my chest or my back and get onto a helicopter, mostly the chest. On occasion, we tried it on the back. It's not as good as having the dog on our chest and repelled out of the helicopter in the dog. And that stresses the dog out. But what happens is when their paws hit the ground, they snap out of it, and then they can go and bite somebody or do a search and that kind of stuff. But pet dogs tend to be a little bit more funky. Some dogs cannot ride in cars. I remember as a kid, we had a poodle who got car sick all the time. We couldn't take the dog to the vet. At first I thought the dog, as a kid, I was thinking, well, I don't like going to the doctor either. So I think the dog doesn't like going to the doctor. No, the dog was getting car sick. And so what we had to do later on with this dog, and this was early on in my training because I was reading books and stuff back then, even as a kid, is that you would put the dog in the car, not move the car out of the driveway, and then bring the dog out and give him a treat, right? You put the dog in the car, and then you'd bring it back out and give the dog a treat. And because with this dog, it seemed with this training method that it was mental, not physical. Because sometimes car sickness has to do with something in your ears and some other stuff. Motion sickness. That's what I was trying to come up with. But in this dog, it appeared that it was more emotional. And so I gave it a shot and did this routine of putting the dog in the car, in and out, in and out, in and out. And then after, it was a long time. I did that for, my memory is about 2 months. It could have been 2 weeks, but in my memory as a kid, as a kid, things seemed bigger, which they were because you were smaller, but also things seemed farther, when you drive there, like, when are we going to get to the store? The store is like, 10 minutes away, but it seemed like it was 2 hours away when you were a kid. And it seemed everything just seemed so much different. But I want to believe it was too much because it seemed like I was doing it for a very long time. Pretty soon I would take the dog out and he would run to the car and like be scratching at the car to go in because you want to get in the car, where before you'd walk to the car and the dog would like put on the brakes and you're pulling on the leash and the dog wouldn't want to get in the car. But maintaining that system of simply just getting the dog into the car was that, dog got a treat as he got closer, and then in the car, treat, in the car, treat, in the car, treat, in the car, treat, in the car, jackpots of treats, right? And then in the car without a treat, in the car without a treat, then in the car with a treat, right? Repeating that over again without ever moving the car. And this takes a period of time, right? This is why most people fail in the training. They won't give it that much time and allow the process to work. And then once the dog did that, then I just had my dad, it was my sister, I believe at the time, because my dad would never participate in crap like this. But I would tell my sister, who was older than me, I'd say, hey, when we get Baron, the dog's name, when you get Baron in the car, and now he's jumping in, now he's happy, right? I just want you to move the car forward, and then I'll give the dog a treat and let the dog out. Right. And this is a regiment that I stuck with as a kid. And I can't remember if I read it somewhere because there was no internet when I was a kid. I know it really wasn't that long ago, but yeah, there was no internet when I was a kid. And then over time, the dog got excited about going in the car, and then the car sickness went away. And so that was one of those things. All right. One last thing. I'm going to look right here. I'm not sure why I even got on. Oh, the traveling stresses the dog out. Do military dogs or police dogs get along with other dogs? That is, again, don't know. It's like any dog. You just don't know. I would say that, in most cases, we have male dogs that have very strong personalities. And in the case of my German Shepherd, he just didn't care about other dogs. I think something that comes with a confident bred German Shepherd or Belgian Malinois, the confidence doesn't give them fear. In most cases, aggression is out of fear. All right. So I would say, and I'm trying to, guess, I think it's been a long time since I've answered this question about police dogs and I'm trying to remember the answer I used to give, but my experience is when we had dogs out in what would be called pack walk. We call it a pack walk with police dogs, and we'd be in Colorado, Florida with 50 to 75 police dogs. In the past, what they used to do was put muzzles on the dogs. Now, muzzles on the dogs, they would fight more often with muzzles on because dogs aren't as dumb as we like to think they are sometimes. They know that they really can't get hurt and they can do a lot of fighting. It's like, a bad guy having handcuffs on and he goes, hey, take these handcuffs off. I'm going to kick your ass. All right, we'll take the handcuffs off. And they go, okay, I was just kidding. Right? It's kind of a little bit of the same thing with some of the dogs. You'll have more fights because they have a muzzle on. And so one day I got asked, and this is a really long story that I'm not going to make a long story. One day I had to do this thing called a pack walk, which I hated because handlers used to get hurt. Dogs would get hurt. Handlers would have to be taken to the hospital because of being injured by dogs. And again, it's a really long explanation to explain how handlers got hit, but they were getting hurt like crazy. We'd take, on occasion, I think we took 2 to 3 handlers to the hospital. One immediately, and the other 2 had to take themselves because they thought they broke something. So anyway, it would turn into a thing. Everybody loved it. I mean, cops were stupid, and we would love it. We'd love the blood and the people being injured, and we'd laugh about it and drink beer afterwards, right? And the guy would come back with his arm in a sling, and give me a beer. I mean, this funny thing, and that's the way we did police work back then. They don't do it now. We have a bunch of wusses in police work now, but back then it used to be, it used to be like that, and so. One day I got asked to do it and I changed it completely. I took all the muzzles off the dogs and everybody thought I was crazy. But we did some obedience leading up to it and taught the dogs that the humans were in charge. In the end, we had very few fights. When we took the muzzles off and we put obedience as a part of it, and then we'd actually click the dogs off leash and let them run around together. And you'd have 50, let's just say we had 50 dogs. You'd have 48 dogs off leash, and 2 of them you couldn't trust off leash because you could tell that they were going to, start a fight and they would get hurt. So this is a really long answer to your question, Ma, but I'm just telling you that I think my experience in most cases, their personalities are strong, confident, not fearful dogs. And so you see less fight with other animals. Now, they're likely to chase down a cat because many of the dogs have the strong desire for prey. Play and prey aren't necessarily the same thing. But prey comes into play when we're teaching the dog to do bite work and that kind of stuff. So in many cases, if a dog sees a squirrel, a police dog sees a squirrel or a cat, they'll chase that down and bite it and quite often kill it because their bites are so strong. But as far as with other dogs, that kind of stuff, it's not as prevalent, I would say. I think I could be confident in saying that. There may be somebody come on and say, no, you're wrong. But in doing the dog walks across the United States with hundreds of dogs, literally hundreds of dogs, once we did it right and took the muzzles off, we saw fewer fights with dogs that were selected properly for their courage and their confidence, lack of fear to do certain things. And so those dogs had less issues with dog fighting. They would growl. They say, get away from me. They would never fight when they're peeing. One thing you learn is that when a dog is peeing, there's never a fight at the tree. The next dog will come on and pee on the tree. Never a fight. And that's one of the few times I would use the word never and always. I never saw it. I never saw ever a fight occur. They would take advantage of a dog that was taking a dump, nor they would ever take advantage of a dog that was urinating. Very interesting thing, right? Because you think about dog, it's always about dog behavior. These things occur not just because dogs are. There's reasons and there's things that make these things occur, and not doing that, there's some type of rule in the dog world. As long as I'm peeing, leave me alone. If you see that, then you know something's wrong, right? When you see dogs do things that aren't necessarily what dogs are supposed to do, there's something wrong on the brain. They got a little quirk. That is not correct. All right. So I hope I answered your question. That was very long-winded answer to your question, but that's what the answer is. It was a very long answer to your question. All right. Always nice to hear oh, thank you, Janet. I appreciate that very much. It's just so much dog stuff was happening that I had to come on and talk about it. I have some plans for some new dog products and some videos and things. I know that it really needs to be updated. We're doing an event coming up with a YouTuber that has millions of followers. I'll be helping out with the filming of something that we're going to be doing with them. And so there's a good chance that I should probably take advantage of that. I have some stuff ready because that's going to be a huge deal. We are getting it all worked out, and we'll be doing something tomorrow with them. I know I probably shouldn't say that because we're not really open in California, but I'm going to do some dog stuff tomorrow. It just kind of all happened very rapidly, like bap, 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 like snap, and then we got to go. We got to do it tomorrow. All right, so that's what's happening. All right, and so we're going to take advantage of that and have some updated products and things, some online training products. And I think that the messages are the same on most of those products, but I just think they just need to be updated a little bit with some better technology, better videos, and I know how to do those things a little bit better now than I did in the past. All right, so that's it. As long as there's no other questions, and my daughter's staring at me for something. Are you just listening? You need something, don't you? All right, she needs something. All right, that's it for me over here in Brea, California. I'd always come on and talk about dogs. Talk about dogs is so easy. I have to work at the other shows. I actually got to write stuff down and figure it out before I start talking. With the dog stuff, 40 something years of doing this, almost 40 years of doing this. It's pretty easy. All right, that's it. I will talk to you later. Take care. Bye.